this stunt is about mastering your finances. It was previously called Smart Investing in India. So it will also be about alternative investments in India. You have few amazing panelists with us today. First, then the call we have Rohit Mittal, and then the CEO and founder of Stilt, which was a fintech company focused on expanding access to credit for the underserved and underserved communities in US. It last season used to leverage alternative data technologies that writing provide fair and exclusive lending solutions. Rohit now an advisor and investor in Martin Cupcase. And he did his bachelor's in production and industrials from Delhi College of Engineering and a master's in operations region from Moderator. We have Hemant. Hemant is the founder and CEO of GoINRI, which is a financial super app designed for global Indian expats to manage everything from investing in Indian mutual funds and opening that already have accounts to filing Indian taxes. And he was talking about that today. He had previously worked at Meta and Walmart as software engineer, and he completed his bachelor's in econ side by RT Plathe and MBA from like the Boston. As of the Boston, thank you so much for being this. Great. I would love to start with you've had to speak for an app company in your specific niche, what is on it the domestic communities in the US. What was like the biggest roadblock or pain point that you thought there is in the US space? Specific white space you wanted to focus on, and if I can continue your position to solve it, and how has your solution evolved since then? I know still else what sharing. So how was your journey with that? What was or ideas you started on trying and how I to kind to get that game. That just our in the best about it and Jordan's for the year. Just stand. But the problem, I think, I moved to very US 8 years ago, and being able to get as well, I respect that pain of, getting my finances. Let's say I moved from India, I have some assets there, but a bank account, the some property or everything behind me, and then, getting started here, earning, making a SAT, that's a year now, I need to manage that. And the hard part is that you don't have balance here, right? You have to do everything on your own. Even from Washington to, you're doing the finances, right? And also the finances is something that it comes to be in the boring thing, right? It's hard to sit down and understand, okay, what do I do with that $10,000? And when it becomes more and more, it's much harder, right? Obviously, everybody wants $1 million, but I don't think everybody has an answer what to win check do if they have $1 million, right? So making money is very different from managing money, right? And I'm sure everybody has a challenge. We don't learn it because it's personal finance, or the statistical initial student orbit, right? So I think you all have that challenge, and because we are like a country where we are in the end of fourth generation, all of that things becomes even harder. And whatever we have learned from India, we not translate even well here as well. So I've lived through that challenges. What I realize is like there's a lack of focus here when it comes to, let's say, Indian community. Like obviously there are products like Fidelity, Chow, Robin, or it also, but they're very fraud for us. Like it applies to everyone, right? They may not be necessarily solving the problems. Yes, access is there. You can open a platform or account online, but that's the cultural advice. What needs to be is they are touch their data to losing and things better. Optimized it. That does not exist, and I think it's because that every person thinks about money differently. Especially about culture, right? I mean, I hear what things about money differently, how we say, how we spend compared to an American and maybe a Mexican, right? But we all share a common bond when it comes to, managing money. And that's where I feel like that's a problem I trade, and there's a lack of ability to invest in that respect. And why I started, to create a financial app or super app for global Indians. Was a question was about how much your product reward. Yeah. So we started with investing in India. That was the first product.
Hello. Yeah. So we started with investing in India as a first product. We thought that is a hard problem to solve. A lot of people have challenges with KYC, opening accounts. But we have graduated ourselves to be adding more things over time. And the reason it has become is because we're focused on the customer. We've seen like, okay, what are the challenges this person is facing, whether it's local or it's on a cross-border side, right? And the one thing that we have added after that is taxes. So we've seen that tax and compliance is a lot of challenge. even though they may not be investing, but they may have certain things where they need to be taken care of with respect to US taxes or India taxes. And so we are proud to be kind of solving all these problems one by one, one step at a time, and evolving from there. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohit. This is working. I moved to the US 15 years ago. I'm just curious if you guys have ever heard of Stilt before Samarth mentioned name here. Has anyone ever heard of Stilt?
Yeah.
So, and I'm assuming like GoINRI is a newer company, so some folks haven't heard of it. It goes to show that even though we face challenges in our lives, we start companies for our population, it's very difficult to get to all the immigrants in the US, especially when about 1 million new people move to the US every year. I started Stilt now 9 years ago in 2016, primarily providing access to credit to folks who are new to the US. When you don't have an SSN, when you don't have credit history in the US, and we provided up to $40,000 as early as you landing in the US. We opened a bank account for you, we gave you money, and we just tried to help you get settled so you don't have to, come up with money for rental deposit or to buy a car or to even pay for, day-to-day expenses when you're going to school, because your bank in India just gave you a loan for school. They gave very limited additional money for living expenses. So that's where we came in, and we were focused broadly on the immigrant population. So we started in 2016, a challenge that we faced ourselves. I used to sleep on couches of Columbia alums because I didn't have money to pay rent or like do rental deposits. I could pay rent, but not thousands of dollars of deposit that New York landlords need. And then people going to Texas need a car or something like that. They always buy like a beat up car, so they could buy a slightly better car. They could go to a slightly better apartment, so on and so forth. That's what we did. And then over time, we added banking products, we added money transfer products, which were cheaper. So we did not take any fees on transfer, so on and so forth. We ran the company for 6 years, and then we sold the company in 2022. And since then, after I left the acquiring company, we've just been exploring various things. Hemant's company, my company, by the way, we were both Y Combinator founders also. So we have known, each other even within that community. So there are lots of people trying to solve problems for the immigrant community. And what we realize is that we all face the same problems. We come at solving these problems with different angles. Like I didn't do anything related to investing. I didn't do anything related to taxes. But over time, the thing we want to get to is like get in front of as many immigrants as possible. So as soon as you move to the US, you know that there's someone who can give you a loan. There's someone who's going to help you invest. There's someone who's going to help you with your journey in the US, and having that mindset or the comfort that someone's there in the US when you move here just empowers you to do things that you would like to do. So that's what I think all of us are trying to achieve with our companies focused on this market.
Yeah, and the credit issue is very real one, because I applied to studios in New York and got rejected because I don't have a credit score.
Yeah, 40 times monthly rent as your income is needed to qualify for a rental lease in New York.
Even if you have that, you need a solid credit score above that. So even if you can show that you make 40 times rent, you need a credit score on top. So that's a very real issue. I have this small poll, so if everyone can join it on Slido. We'll go for this one first, so we can see some of the top issues which people face. But I think my next question was going to be about what are some of the most basic things which you think people leave behind when or just miss when they're trying to manage their finances. Maybe it's about accessing your product more earlier, but more or less like mistakes people do, things they can do better, and how can they use your product, specifically now that you're expanding?
Yeah, I think what we've tried to do as part of the product is to educate. I think a lot of things people are unaware as they move from India or they want to move back to India. We're trying to create a checklist or partner with people who can help solve that. And we want to be at the forefront. We are also doing that. But essentially, people need to be educated on these topics. We do this through our products, through webinars, through events. We've been doing a lot of them. We do also in-person meetups to make that happen. We have done more than 30 events so far in the past 2 years and continue to do more. And on multiple topics we have seen, even immigration is something that, definitely at the heart of every immigrant. So we try to touch upon that as well. Now, when it comes to finances, I think most people overlook on taxes. So this is because I want to mention, because we started earlier this year, and when we saw their 1040s and tax returns, what we realized, a lot of people are under optimized on their taxes. Many people are leaving money on the table because they are just not aware of the tax code. Some are even scared to do things because they are like, hey, I'm an immigrant here. Should I be even taking this deduction or exemption? I want to make sure I have a clear path to a green card and don't want to mess things up. But I think this is where advice can really help you, where someone can make you more confident. Hey, this is all good and you can do this and save money and actually make it better for you. And then obviously once you have the saved money and are able to pool in capital, how do you invest that in the right way? Whether it's India or whether it's in the US, getting a Robinhood account doesn't mean that you can trade stocks and make money. It's very easy, I know, but there's obviously that's, I would say, is a play money, right? But as soon as you start having more than 50K or 100K, one needs to be smart enough to understand, hey, how do I grow this more consistently? And you may have a goal in mind. Let's say you want to buy a house or you want to do something else, right? Maybe let's say if you have kids, you want to plan for them, right? So how do you make sure like you achieve your goals over time? And as I said before, like, as immigrants here, we don't have that privilege to have parents or, advisors. So I think we want to kind of solve for that. Our products do that. For example, as I said, like we offer solutions on tax, investments, and there are a few more products upcoming that, we will be launching soon. For example, remittance and insurance and many more as we become that super app.
Is the question.
What are some of the things people forget to do, or steps they can take to, better manage their personal finance?
I'll talk more on the credit side. So primarily, there's a lot of money that is spent that you don't realize, which is in terms of interest that you pay on the loans that you take. So this is not expenses that you see separately, but how much money could you have saved if you had lowered your interest is a thing we should think about. And if you build credit, then you can actually lower your interest on credit cards, on your auto loan, on your mortgage, whatever it may be. So it's an expense, not of omission, it's of commission. Like you don't realize that you are paying tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars extra because you did not build credit at the right time. And now you have to pay extra interest because you don't have enough credit history. So one of the things that I learned later is to start building credit as soon as you move to the US. I know India now, I think, has CIBIL as the primary credit score that's growing in India, and everyone lends you based on CIBIL. But US has pre-established credit scores like FICO. Those are credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, but credit scores are FICO, Vantage, so on and so forth. You should, as soon as you land, when you open a bank account, you get a secured credit card that can help you start building credit. And you would not believe, if you don't work in credit, like how the interest rate suddenly increases if you are not in the right band that the bank serves. And your interest could be lower if you just somehow get to that right band. So not building that was one of the mistakes that I did. I didn't know about it. Second big mistake on credit side I did was I took a Macy's card and I had a $75 balance on it that I forgot to pay because I don't know when they sent me a bill or even if they did at all. And then my credit score suddenly dropped to like 600. And I was applying for something and then I saw, I'm like, why is it I've never made a late payment? Turns out I had a Macy's card. So irrespective of how much discount you get, like don't try to get a Macy's card at Macy's. And the third thing you should do is people sometimes mistakenly get this advice that you need to revolve balance, which means don't pay off credit cards in full to build credit. That's incorrect. You should always try to pay credit cards in full. because your utilization ratio is something that is seen by lenders before they give you loans. So if you do these three things early on, not get Macy's card. By Macy's, I also mean J. Crew or whatever the popular stores are today. Don't get those cards. Start building credit early, and then you'll realize later on, without even knowing and doing anything else, you'll end up saving a lot more money, because this is all post-tax money, and we all know taxes are very high. So half of the money you earn goes in taxes. So you're saving twice, or you're earning twice as much income if you save that in paying interest. So keeping that in mind is like a financially prudent decision.
Great. Can you share like one customer story or moment that really stayed with you, a personal anecdote where you felt like the impact you set out to make, actually came to life? Or any of your customers where you felt that they shared something so insane with you, they were like, we really need, more financial literacy?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are countless of them I think we've come across, and on different use cases. So one thing I want to share is like at INRI, we have had the privilege to be getting different questions, like people asking like, hey, can you help me sell my property in India, right? This is one of the common things. Like we don't help with that right now, but the thing I want to highlight is like becoming that brand. We have got that opportunity to be able to solve these problems now, and we are trying to find solutions. Now, one customer anecdote or kind of example would be like someone who's been living here for the past 10 years and have also cross-border things, like they've got a Bangalore property or an apartment, and they are living here. They also have got a house, and they have these challenges to obviously manage their real estate there, but also they want to invest. So they had to sell a property, take that proceeds to invest in the markets, and we were able to help them from end to end on these aspects. We were able to find the solutions, the partners, and also build bring our own products to get them to get started, let's say on investments. And also when it comes to compliance, we were able to help them both on India and US tax. So this is I think a good example where we were able to kind of offer multiple products, and also at the end of the day more peace of mind when it comes to solving this problem. And this I've seen across countries. Like US continues to be our major focus given my presence here, and a lot of immigrants here as well. But then other countries also have similar problems. So personally, I've probably spoken to more than 2,000 NRIs so far across different countries, and similar set of problems where we've been able to solve them either on investments or taxes. And I think they all kind of motivate me every day to solve these problems end to end, but also in a meaningful way, and to create that impact.
Sometimes your products have an impact that you don't even realize. That's not how you start the company. That's not why you start the company. I talked about, renting an apartment or buying a car, so on and so forth, were the use cases that we were thinking about. But this particular anecdote tells me how much impact one company can have without realizing it. The example is actually focused on folks who came to the US, completed their master's, but for some reason did not have enough money to pay for their last semester of education. So US universities allow you to defer sometimes payments or do a payment plan if you have challenges, but you still have to make full payments before you get certificate of completion, your degree, so that you can go work somewhere. So these folks had completed their degrees in terms of getting credits. They had job offers, but they could not get their OPT because they could not pay the fees, the final semester fees or the final payment. So they took loans from us to pay that fees to get their OPT, to then start their $100,000, $200,000 job. And at one time, when I heard this from a certain customer, I went and I did analysis on our customers at that time. It was like 2019 or something. And I realized that we had, by just helping customers pay fees for their last semester, we had helped them with $200 million of their lifetime income. Because once you start missing, if you can't graduate, you cannot stay you cannot get OPT, you cannot start working, you cannot get your H-1B, so on and so forth. So your life could completely change because of few tens of thousands of dollars or even $10,000. And again, like particularly in India, banks only lend you a certain percentage of what your tuition fee is. And if you don't have the remaining to pay, what do? You always get your first semester fee or first year fees, but you never get the full fee, and then you have to come up with the money from someplace. So these things are just insane to think about. This is not why we started the company, but people, once they saw that we are willing to lend them money without SSNs, without credit history, were using funds in these ways that completely changed their life and allowed them to stay in the US and added hundreds of millions of dollars of income in their life for us.
That's amazing. If people can fill out this poll, we would love to hear both of your thoughts. And once people start earning money, how should they approach alternative investments? Where do you think is the best avenue to do that? Is it in India, US? And what can be the first steps for someone who has like 20, 30K saved up and just wants to start their investment journey?
Yeah.
I think it should allow to, but I'm not sure. I'm sorry if it does not allow for to, but yeah. You guys can leave questions. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, we will just cover them at the end. But
so I think on alternative investment, they make more sense for higher ticket size and also have higher risk with them. So if you have stashed up like maybe 20, 30K or even less than 100K, I think best to go with public investments, which is mostly the stock market. Now, before going that, one thing you want to make sure you have an emergency fund, or people say that you have some liquid cash, at least to keep you safe, and especially in the current situation where there are layoffs or maybe you're not getting a job or just tricky situations. Just make sure you have at least 6 months to 1 year saved up and not subject to market risk or any other risk, or even liquidity risk, right? Make sure it's available and accessible. You could put in a high yield savings if that's that's okay to do so. But once you kind of have covered that, then I think it comes to, okay, what can you do more? And there's obviously, you may have heard of 60-40 or something, or maybe 70-30, depends on the risk. But essentially, what I'm talking about is asset allocation. To think of it, okay, depending on your age and how much risk you can take, you can subject that capital to, more risk. And I think being US stock market, more accessible, one could start from there, given you want to be making a presence here and continue to live here. Get started with that and go with general indices, right? Trying to buy Tesla when it goes a dip, even if you don't know it's a dip, right? That's kind of hard to predict, right? So one thing I've learned in stock markets or anything in general, whatever is in the future, it's just hard to predict. And trying to assume that you can do so, it's, I think, naive, right? Yes, you can be right sometimes, but most times it's luck or kind of just things panning out or manifesting in the way, but it's hard at the end of the day. So get started with something more proven, maybe indices, like you can go with the broad-based indices for that. And now after you have done that, you start looking at other options. And obviously, if you have more money, you could look at investing in India. Now, the reason I say investing in India comes after is because it's more like a diversification strategy. Wherever you are, you want to invest in that geography first, right? Because that's where you are locally available. But beyond that, you could start investing in India or maybe alternative investments. In that case, one thing I think one should definitely make sure is optimizing on the taxes, because that's a very easy win. Like most people think, because that's your money which is unnecessarily going to the IRS, right? And as kind of Rohit pointed out, like half of your money or 40% of your capital or, whatever income you earn is going to taxes. So how can you kind of avoid that or make it, less? That would be like an easy way to save that up and then obviously invest into other products. Yeah.
I'll take a slightly different approach to this answer, which is I don't think you should worry about investing at all. You should just focus on making money. Like making money is the best thing about the US. Anyone can make any amount of money in the US. If you start focusing too much on investing or like how do I optimize my investing, so on and so forth, you are going to make a lot less money than if you start focusing on how do I make more money. Making more money comes in many different ways, like finding a better job, being good at your job, learning new skills. Like AI is the new thing. Are you really positioning yourselves to take advantage of this new trend, so on and so forth? And are you building the right relationships with folks? What happens if there is a layoff? These are all tail risks that can impact your life in more ways than you can think. In investing, the best money people make is just putting the money in the fund, and then it just compounds. You can't really control that. What you can control is making money for yourself, or like making money in jobs or in startups or whatever it may be. And spending time there is the best way, I think, seeing people in the US make money. And then 10 years from now or something, your skills are going to compound. You're going to make a lot more salary, stuff like that. And then you can use INRI or someone else to manage it for you, right? Like, so there are like, you leave it to the experts to optimize taxes, to optimize your investing. You focus on making money. And like, that's one thing that I think is not really taught in the US as we move here, is just the amount of opportunity there is. Like, you can move as an immigrant and become the richest person in the world with $400 billion or whatever Elon Musk has, right? Like, but even for others, if you go through the list, so many of them are immigrants in the US. It's just like you won't get opportunity to make money. And opportunity is higher when you are younger. As you get older, you start to narrow down in your path, and then you're difficult to change. So slightly different angle to investing, but invest in yourselves to make more money long term. I think that's going to do wonders, more so than finding the right stock or whatever it may be.
But I think I would want to turn things up a little bit differently and talk about your entrepreneurial journey. We had a panel before about entrepreneurship, but since both of you have been YC founders, how has your journey been with YC, but also beyond that? How did you take on that risk? Because, both of you were previously working in very safe positions. So how did you take on that risk? And it obviously has played on well, but when you were making that decision, how did you convince your family? How did you convince yourself more so?
Yeah. So I think as an immigrant, it's definitely harder to get started because of the immigration thing. It's not, the US definitely presents more opportunity in terms of starting a company or doing things on your own. But I think the immigration challenge is much harder to navigate. Like, okay, if I leave my job and start doing a company, what visa would I get on? Am I eligible to be here, in a legal status? And now obviously you may have heard of O1 visa. So that's one, I think most founders go for that, I'm sure. And particularly for Indians, I think that's the one best way to get started there and go for EB1 and then, make it easy for the green card path. So it's something similar what I also pursued, but that journey was a bit different for me, that I was on H1B. So previous to starting as an entrepreneur, I was at Meta. And my entrepreneurial journey started more as a side project. So I was working on things that, like building some trading algorithms. And initially the idea was to just build for myself and just tinker around, build a platform. And over time I realized that, hey, I could abstract this out and create a platform. And that's how I applied to Y Combinator. And interestingly, I got the interview in the first application itself, which was a surprise to me because I was not really hoping for it. But that actually made me dream even further. Like, I realized, okay, there is someone who is interested or can possibly invest in what I'm building. And that gave me that confidence. So I didn't get in then, but it kind of lifted my aspiration. And I was on H1B then. So what I kind of planned out, hey, I would get married and I would go on H4 and then, start this out and maybe this will work out, right? So I was a bit naive then, in terms of assuming things will happen. Yes, it has happened and it worked out in that way. But it can be, tricky sometimes. And so that's how I started. So when I applied to YC, couple more times after that, and I got in the third one. And throughout this time, I had already gotten an H4. Then as YC really helped me, I think, into building my profile. And as a founder, I could apply for O1. And that's how I navigated my immigration journey. Now, whether can it be, applied to everyone? Maybe not sure, but, everyone has a different situation. But I think one way to get this started is becoming a founder. But yes, starting a startup is not so easy. I mean, it's easy, but actually making money and, making things happen, all of that is, I think, becomes very harder over time. And you can only know when you get it started. Hope I am.
Definitely.
Starting startups is very easy. Making them successful is the tough part. This is after we went through YC, and I mean, now folks know a lot about starting companies and Y Combinator and all this stuff. Back in 2016, when I got into YC, so I started the company in end of 2015, Q4 2015, and I knew nothing about startups or Y Combinator and accelerators and fundraise and all of that. So we started the company, as Hemant did, as a side project. And I was not a software engineer, so I had to learn full stack software engineering to build my company, to build the product and stuff like that. And eventually I got my roommate as my co-founder, but we got into YC in November 2015. And the part about building companies is that you have to assume 99% of the time it's not going to work out. And you should want to still do it because you think that you will work hard and maybe you'll be the 1%. It's not a median game. Like you don't go to Indian cricket team or whatever by being median. You have to believe when you're going on that career path that I can be good enough to be a cricket player, to be an actor or whatever the vertical is. And startups are just stacked that way that the top 1% of the people make it, the remaining everyone else doesn't. And then those top 1% of the people keep changing every year, every quarter. And so it is a risk. Everyone takes that risk. US citizens take that risk. As immigrants, we take that risk. But then we have this additional, what I call binary risk that we can't control, which is our visas. And I was on H-1B when I registered the company. And no other accelerator took us because we were on H-1B at the time, funnily enough. So 500 startups, there were a couple more at the time. They said, figure out how you're going to stay in the US and then we're going to pursue this conversation further. So Y Combinator did not ask us about our visas. They just took us. And then we were like, okay, Y Combinator has a condition that you have to be full-time on your company the day you start YC. So we have November and January 4th or January 5th, 2016 was when YC was starting. So we still continued to work in our full-time jobs. And I quit my job one day before I started YC. So within those 60 days, you have a window. If you're not an H-1B, you have a window. And this is not legal advice. This is what just happened. So I quit my job Jan 4. And then the way USCIS knows when you have quit your job is if your company tells them that this person is no longer employed or something like that. So because I quit on Jan 4th, my company informed USCIS on Jan 31st. So I have 30-something days plus 60 days. So I have about 90 days. And I have to figure out how to stay in the US in 90 days. And I was ready to be on B1, B2 visas, not get paid and stuff like that, continue to work. I found out about O1 visa just by going to YC and talking to other founders. And at that time, it was not that common. I think there were not a lot of immigrant founders who were applying for visas at the time. So I found 2 guys who had applied for O1 who were YC founders. They gave me some guidance. We talked to the lawyers. We very quickly prepared our application. Everyone was working, building their company. We were doing that. But on top of that, we were filling out applications to get our O1 visas. And I think we applied within 30 days of going into YC. And then within 4 days of that, we got our O1 visa. And that's how we could just continue on the journey. But the risky part is it may not have happened. There is some survivorship bias here that it happened. So I'm just, I could continue to build a company, but it may just not have happened. But we were still willing to do things willing to continue with the company even if that didn't happen, right? Like, so that's what you need, or that's the kind of thinking you need to build a company, is that I'm taking this risk knowing that it may not pay off. And I have to be the top 1%, or at least aspire and aim to be the top 1% of the companies that are going to YC, and then you're going to make it. And then after that, it gets easier. Then I applied for EB1, got my green card, got my citizenship, so on and so forth. But we don't know all the stories where the founders did not get their visas sorted. What if, like, they did something like they paid themselves while on H-1B while they were working on full-time at some other company or whatever it may be. So there are risks. There is a lot of hard work, and there is persistence. So you have to just, in your mind, be aware of the risks you are taking and you are willing to take to build this company. And if it works out well and good, like, you may be sitting someday, here and like talking about your story, but it's not a given. And even though it's not a given, I think it's worth taking a shot, because you can always go back to a job. You can always figure out the rest of the things later. If you really want to build a company, you should definitely try. Or you'll marry someone and be on H4 or something like that.
I think that was the takeaway from Kenny's show yesterday. That we'll take a few questions from here. You guys can pick whatever you want to answer. Can you see it or no?
Okay, right. I'll take the first one. What is Stilt's recovery percentage? So Stilt actually had pretty good performance overall. We were around for about 6 years. We originated about $250 million in loans. And I think our default rate was less than 2%, which means like if we lent out $100, less than $2 were not paid back. The thing was, we were mainly lending to South Asian population. That was about 65-70% of the population. So India, Sri Lanka, and like surrounding areas. And you are all software engineers. You make a lot of money. You don't spend money. So you end up paying back way faster than I would like you to pay back. Like, that was the problem. The problem was not they were not paying back. I was like, they're paying back too fast. So how am I going to earn interest to keep my company going? Like, I had to just find more people all the time to lend them money. So Stilt's recovery percentage was about, of the 2% that defaulted, either they went back to their home country for some reason, or they were just, they lost the job or whatever it may be. We never pursued them too much because just culturally, we like to pay back our debts, like the Lannisters or whatever, right? Like, so most of the people who could actually paid back on their own, and people who couldn't, like, we just let them go. So that 2% came out to be our default rate, and maybe like we got back 10 to 20% of that, which means 0.2% to 0.4% of that as recovery. But you don't need SSNs to report loans back to the bureau. You need name, first name, last name, address, date of birth. Those are 3 or 4 items that you need. When you get an SSN, then you can attach it to the file, and your credit history will just continue from that point. So SSN is just a way to reduce errors. Yeah. So because 2 people with same date of birth, same address, same name will not have the same SSN. The rest of the details may be the same, but SSN would be different. So that's how credit bureaus actually distinguish between people. And the other aspect, going a little bit deeper into this, is there are always errors on credit bureau reports, which is very common. I think about 45 million of the 270 million credit reports have some sort of error in them. So it's not an accurate system. It's not like a unique immutable ID in a database. Like, it's not that. There could be overlaps.
Yeah. So does it make sense to invest in India with the fluctuating? So I think the good part about investing in India is that it's a economy which is not so correlated with the US market. Like, you can see, like, it's still a developing economy. A lot of things needs to be built. It's not like as US, which is much developed, or even, countries like in Europe. So there is a significant chance that India could become the next China. When, I don't know, but obviously that's the promise that it has. And definitely, I mean, things have been progressing uh, in a more optimistic way, right, over time. So that's where I feel investing in India does make sense if you want to participate in an economy which, after the US, it's close to you. You understand it, given you are coming from there. There is a rational, you know, logic to do so. Now, when it comes to fluctuating or currency depreciation, that will happen, but you can factor that out if the total returns or the net returns that you are coming from compared to US, it's still higher, right? And it can be higher in sense where if you are investing in upcoming, uh, let's say, companies in India or the index, it would definitely give you more returns over time. And if I were to talk about numbers, from 2000 to today, so almost 25-year period, India has done better than the US, even accounting for the depreciation. But sometimes as humans, we mostly look at the recency bias, what has happened in the past 5 years or 10 years. And definitely in the past 10 to 15 years, US has done better, and particularly because of the tech stocks. But on a longer cycle, India has done better. So when you are thinking about investing in general, think about the long-term thing, right? 10-year, 20-year period or more, right? So that's how you want to think about India. If you are looking to add it as a portfolio in your portfolio. And just like how you would add assets like gold or Bitcoin, maybe, right? It's not related to the stock market and it may not give that return, but it is uncorrelated and it's a way for diversification and a way to maybe make more returns compared to some other asset.
I think this question is, what is the best way for NRIs to get educated around personal finance? Go to your app.
Yeah, for sure. So we are trying to build a repository, both in different ways. So we've written a lot of blogs, and I want to mention that we're getting today more than 100,000 monthly visitors on the platform. They're visiting our blogs. They're reading on stuff that we've talked about in different areas, particularly on finance. And this is a number, if I were to compare, is one of the highest when it comes to related websites. And we will be adding more such, education stuff like courses, right? So I'm a personal fan of Ankur Nagpal. He's the founder of carry.com. He has written or, brought in a lot of people who have done courses and, different videos on that. So we want to be doing more of that, but more tailored towards the NRIs and kind of structure that in that order. So yeah, you want to take that up?
You want to talk about, Rohit, if you want to talk about implication in finances and taxes if you're heavily invested in the US stock market and decide to move back to India, or generally this risk that you might have to move back to India even if it's not forced, and then how do you keep your portfolio global enough that you can make that change?
How much money do you have to be worrying about global allocation? I generally take the point of view of focusing more on the few big things in life that can really move the needle for you. And largely, if you have to move back to India for whatever reason and you've saved enough in the US and you've been invested in the market, you'll probably have two options. And I'm sure like tax experts or some service like GoINRI is going to advise you on it, depending on the tax implications at the time. But either you would want to come back to the US or you would decide to just stay in India forever. If you decide to stay in India forever, the two things I would think about is how fast is India's currency depreciating against the US dollar. When I moved to the US, 2011 something, it was 1:44. Now it's 1:80, I think. 77? 80, sorry, I stopped tracking. 87. So it's, I'm sorry? Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Wow. So what you gotta, the point is that you got to look at how fast the currency is depreciating, right? Like it's already 50% depreciated. So if I had moved all of my savings to India back when I moved here, they would be worth half on a constant currency basis. Then you look at like how fast is India's stock market growing? Do you believe in the country over the long term or not? When are you going to need the money? US markets have consistently given 10 to 11% pre-tax reinvesting dividends returns in the US. And if you get lucky, like maybe you're in tech or whatever it may be, then you earn a lot better. Now, keeping those 2 or 3 things in mind, you can decide if you want to leave your money in the US or you want to take it back with you in India. Everyone somehow, I have not found, like, I don't know anyone, but everyone else knows someone who made money in real estate in India. I don't know how that happens. Like they bought something in Gurgaon or something, and then people are just moving money back to India to buy some flat in Gurgaon. I try not to do that because the goal of like all these investing in personal finance thing is to like make good money in life. There are 2 ways. One is take risks and then they pay off and then you make a lot of money and then you don't worry about little things like taxes, right? And then second is like you work hard and you continue to compound and you don't make the mistake of taking too much risk that can wipe you out, right? So if I'm not very confident in something, there is no point investing a little bit of money for a slightly higher return, unless I'm confident enough to invest a lot of money and get a lot of return. So in the US stock market, I'm confident that I can make 10, 11% over a certain period of time. So I can put a lot of money in there. And if I'm not confident of the Indian stock market, then I'm not going to put as much money in there, right? So you just got to think about like all of these things. The goal is to make more money, not to just learn about personal finance. Like you are not going to make money learning about personal finance. You're either going to make money or going to make big bets where you won't lose your money. So that's how I think about it. So like whatever decision come up with.
Move back. Yep.
You can move money slowly. I think Indian government allows you to move certain amount per year to India, so you can continue to take out money. Again, like based on what you need, like you have emergency funds or not, are you working in India or not? You want to buy a flat in Gurgaon, and then you'd have to sell, some US stocks, take that pay taxes here or not pay taxes here, because now you're never going to be back in the US, whatever you want to do. Because a lot of people, believe it or not, in 2008, one of the common questions we got when we started Stilt was, oh, what happens if it's a 2008 scenario and everyone goes back to their home country? And what people did was they maxed out their credit cards in a month and then they went back home. And I was like, if they're going home, it's because they're being forced out, not because they want to max out cards and go back. Because cumulative credit limits for us is maybe $50,000 US. And you all make a lot more money compared to that per year in your jobs. Why would you run away with $50,000 by maxing out credit cards unless it's a visa issue, you lost your job, or there's some other problem, right? So I think we can think of all these hypothetical scenarios that may make us go towards suboptimal decisions. So if you're thinking about what if I go back to India and what if this happens and that happens, just make it more concrete. It's like, I'm going to keep 5 years of savings, in an account, and I'm not going to touch that because I may have to go back to India. Or you may say, I'm going to, start putting money aside in India to buy that flat in Gurgaon, whatever it may be, to buy real estate in India for your parents, for yourselves, whatever, because I'm going to build a life there. And I think by doing all of those things, you'll just feel a lot more comfortable.
Well, thank you so much, Hemant and Rohit. This was amazing. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We have a